When you add more money to the system, the things that are measured in that money go up because each individual dollar is worth less, right? I don't think that this was all because of Trudeau's spending when it comes to the CERB and the CRB and the emergency wage subsidies. I don't think that this certainly is connected to it, but I do believe that our connection to this organization of central banks globally led us down this path of zero interest rate monetary policy, a quantitative easing, money made for these big banks as they trade settlement balances to own more Government of Canada bonds. These are details we've talked about on the channel before. Nobody's talking about it at that level. Polyev either. Although we do have some information about what Polyev thinks, this is something that's been talked about ad nauseum over the past 4 days. I haven't given my take on it yet. We've got a 2-hour interview between Jordan Peterson and Pierre Poilievre. Some good points made in there, some not so good points made. But the way that he talks about money printing, he doesn't give any kind of, here's what I would have done in this situation. Here's how I could have led us better than Trudeau could have. Here's how I'm going to push back against the interests of these global organizations to actually serve the interests of us here at home nationally as Canadians. Let's listen to this clip from the interview here. I think you're going to find it interesting. I sure did, but I do have some problems with it.
Okay, so what would you do to stop inflation?
Well, we stop the money printing. You know, we need, and the money printing is just a means to fund deficit spending. Mm-hmm. Governments borrow to
define the deficit, for people.
So basically the deficit is
So I think that this is an oversimplification of why we printed money during the pandemic and for America during the great financial crisis. I don't think money was only printed for because governments wanted money to take on debt to provide these social programs. Also, when you print money, you increase demand in the bond market. That certainly allows the government to take on more debt. But what you're doing is stimulating the economy. You're bringing down interest rates, and that allows more businesses to expand more quickly. It allows for consumers to feel better about their finances and go out and spend and take on cheap debt. Well, everybody did that in Canada because they made you feel like, hey, if you're not doing this, you're the schmuck, right? Because we're going to inflate away everybody's debt. I don't think that it's all just because the government wants money to implement social programs. I also think that the central bankers were like, hey, we need to stimulate the economy here. We've got to close down the economy. This was their idea, so we need to stimulate it. We can't just allow a recession to happen. When I think that there's arguments to be made that, one, the economy shouldn't have been shut down to the extent that it was. That could have helped us. And two, just this thought that we cannot let anything negative happen to the economy. We cannot allow these big banks to experience any kind of stress. We cannot let people who have taken on too much debt and now are losing their jobs, we can't let them lose their homes. It would look too bad on us. I think that there's an argument to be made that more of a free market with less intervention from the central banks may have led to better outcomes for Canadians because we wouldn't have seen asset price inflation, all of these social issues popping up in terms of housing and people not being able to start families. I think a lot of this is the result of the decisions made by central banks, not necessarily individual governments who kind of were along for the ride when it comes to this global money printing that we saw.
Difference between what the government spends and what it brings in.
It's usually calculated on a yearly basis.
That's
deficit.
right.
Yeah. And the debt?
Well, the debt is just the accumulation of the deficits.
Right.
So the deficit right now is $62 billion. And
I thought it had a ceiling of
41 billion, yeah. Right.
Wasn't that a ceiling?
Yeah.
Guess not, eh?
I guess not. Mm-hmm. Look, there are very real present day consequences for that. Deficits increase the money supply. Central banks effectively facilitate that increase in the money supply, and that causes inflation. And it's why our I have a buddy whose family moved here from Italy back in 1973. His father worked paving roads, and his mother made sandwiches in a senior's home. They were able to pay off their home 10 minutes from Parliament Hill in 7 years.
Right.
their grandchildren wouldn't be able to save up a down payment for that home in 15 years, and they will be university educated with all the advantages of having been here 2 decades. That is the consequence of the money supply growing vastly quicker than the stuff that money
Well,
buys. So what we have to do is stop.
He's right about that, right? Just the inflation that we see from the result of printing of money to stimulate the economy. What we're not hearing is that decision is largely out of the politicians' hands, I believe. I think that central bankers and global financial organizations have made it almost a religious dogma that monetary policy is not political policy. We are separate from you. We are not beholden to the public. We will make this decision on how we're going to manage the economy. We will choose the winners. We will choose the losers, and you're going to operate within our framework.
Stop growing the money supply and start growing the stuff money buys, right? Produce more energy, grow more food, build more homes. We have to unleash the free enterprise system to produce more stuff of value. And this is where we have to remove the artificial scarcity that the government is imposing on the population. Let's incentivize our municipalities to grant the fastest building permits in the world to build homes.
And you have a plan for that in principle?
Yes. I mean, I'm going to say to the municipal governments, they either speed up permits, cut development charges, and free up land, or they will lose their federal infrastructure money. So they will have a powerful carrot and stick incentive to speed up home building.
And the percentage of a new house price that's a consequence of
Again,
government
we get
taxation
into a lot
and
more
regulation?
real estate related stuff here. But all of this just to say, although Polyev talks a lot more eloquently about this kind of stuff and talks in a way that doesn't make you believe that he thinks you're an idiot, it doesn't scratch the itch entirely. It just doesn't scratch the itch entirely. It doesn't scratch the itch of what's really behind all of this. How come people aren't able to make decisions about their own economies when it comes to global organization rules, right? The implementation of different rules by the International Monetary Fund, the vast amounts of money that are contributed to the IMF so that they can support different projects in different parts of the world with varying degrees of merit. These contributions that other countries make to them. The Bank of International Settlements saying, here's how you can operate as a bank in the world, and here's how you can't operate. Here's when we're going to change the rules. Here's how we're going to change the rules. Hey, central bankers from the European Central Bank, Bank of Canada, Bank of Australia, Bank of New Zealand, Bank of Canada, let's all get together regularly in Basel, how do you say that? This neutral site. And we'll make the decisions about how we'll operate monetary policy. We are the mathematicians that are just simply coming to the conclusion that anyone else would. We are not politicians. We are central bankers. None of this stuff is what is being talked about by Polyev. I hope he does start talking about it. But I just don't have faith that he will at this point. We're going to keep on watching it here on the channel. All this to say, Trudeau steps down. It's a big day. New year. New year. New leader, eventually. Probably certainly new prime minister. Probably a new prime minister from a new party within the next 6 months, although it seems like it's going to be delayed quite a lot. And it doesn't really seem like it's serving the will of the Canadian people as it stands in the polls right now, but I digress. We see this drama between Freeland, this drama between Trudeau and her. Is Mark Carney involved in the taking down of Trudeau, leading to this leadership race? I'm not sure. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you a dime. Hell, you won't even see me pop up on your feed if you don't watch these videos. Most of us are on the home feed there. It'll only show you me if you want to. All it does is if you appreciate this content, click the subscribe button. It only helps out the channel. Hope for more and more videos just like this one. Some longer form content, but I also make videos that are a little bit more condensed, a little bit more explanatory, giving you examples and explaining how these systems work. Today, I kind of just complained about the way that they work rather than getting into the nitty gritty about the actual operations, the actual stuff that central bankers would have you believe is math that's too complex for you to even think about. Hint, it's not. They want it to seem like this arcane, impossible to understand operation that they're doing. They're not. It reminds me a lot of churches back before the printing press. Right? We want to be the ones that have the authority to make the decisions because we understand, and you do not. You can't read the Bible. Right? Then we get mass circulation of the Bible with the printing press. This whole idea, central organizations don't want you to think about the decisions that they're making, and they don't want to be accountable to average people. And the best way of doing that is making this dense language that nobody can understand. We simplify that here on the channel. We talk about that here on the channel. Canadian news, global news when it comes to this type of stuff. If you're interested at all, click subscribe. It's very, very cheap. And with all that said, thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you next time.